Welcome to the Strategy Sync YouTube channel. Please subscribe and like to hear new book summaries. Today we're tackling, well, one of the most high-stakes, high-pressure topics facing basically every leader on the planet: the arrival of the quantum era.
It really is the ultimate strategic challenge, isn't it? And today we're diving deep into the tactical and management playbook designed to meet it. We are unpacking the essential roadmap laid out in the book Accelerated Quantum Technologies by Greg Skulmoski.
Okay, so let's dig into that, because we've all heard the term quantum computing for years, but it often sounds like science fiction. A problem for another day.
And that's the trap. This book cuts right through that uncertainty. It offers a really defined mission. Organizations have to overcome what he calls quantum hesitancy.
Quantum hesitancy, I like that term. It captures that feeling of being frozen, right?
Precisely. Skulmoski argues that this paralyzing indecision that so many leaders feel can be transformed into a clear, actionable strategy. The book's core mission is to give organizations a structured, front-end change management approach, and then couple that with some very advanced project scheduling techniques.
So it's moving beyond just being a textbook.
Oh, absolutely. It's about getting to an actual accelerated implementation plan. Actionable insights.
And who is this for? Who needs this acceleration right now? Because, corporate inertia is a powerful force. A lot of organizations have delayed their quantum journeys.
And you can't entirely blame them. They've been diverting critical resources to immediate high-priority projects. Things like AI implementation, cloud migration, zero-trust security.
All things they absolutely have to do.
Exactly. But the book is tailored for the people who have to navigate this conflict. We're talking IT, cybersecurity professionals, executives, and maybe most importantly, the people acting as quantum champions inside these organizations.
So the premise is it's urgent.
It's incredibly urgent. While organizations have been focused on the near term, which is essential, they've basically been playing catch up against this unavoidable ticking clock. Quantum experts are all saying the same thing. You need an accelerated plan right now to mitigate the risk and, to capture the opportunity.
Which means shortening timelines that currently seem, well, impossibly long.
That's the challenge.
It sounds like a terrifying tightrope walk. Speed is critical, but speed, as we all know, often breeds mistakes. So we have to start with the urgency itself. Why the rush?
Okay, so before we get to the deadline, the ticking clock, we should probably set the stage a little. Just quickly establish the technology landscape. The book does a great job simplifying the field into three major categories.
Right, the three pillars of quantum tech. What are they?
So first, you've got quantum sensors. These are devices that use quantum effects to get, unrivaled precision and sensitivity.
So think, applications way beyond what we have now.
Way beyond. Improving medical diagnostics, detecting tiny gravitational shifts for earthquake forecasting, enhancing safety in places like mines. It's just unparalleled measurement capability.
Okay, so measurement and detection. That makes sense. Pillar 2 must be the infrastructure.
Exactly. Quantum communications. This is really the path to what people are calling a secure, decentralized quantum internet.
And the big application there is QKD, right? Quantum key distribution.
That's the most immediate one. Instead of relying on, complex math problems, QKD uses the actual properties of photons, particles of light, to send and verify encryption keys.
So if someone tries to listen in?
The quantum state collapses. The photon changes. And both parties are instantly alerted. It's a level of security that math-based encryption just can't physically match.
Okay, and that brings us to the big one, the one that's driving all this global competition and, frankly, the biggest threat: quantum computing. We always hear about bits versus qubits. How does the book explain it in a simple way?
It's a really crucial distinction. A classical bit is simple. It's a 1 or a 0. A light switch is either on or off, period.
Right.
But a quantum computer uses qubits. And they leverage these unique quantum principles, like superposition and entanglement.
Superposition. The simple analogy is the spinning coin, right?
That's the best one. While it's spinning in the air, it's not heads or tails. It's kind of both at the same time. Only when it lands, when you measure it, does it collapse into one state.
And that ability to be in multiple states at once is what gives it its power.
Yes. That allows for what's called quantum parallelism.
Yeah.
It can process enormous amounts of data at the same time, which makes it incredibly fast for very specific tasks. Things like optimization, material science simulations, or searching huge databases with algorithms like Shor's and Grover's.
So they're not replacing our laptops. They're specialized hyper-accelerators.
That's the perfect way to put it. And for project planning, the book simplifies it even further. From a management perspective, you just need to think about three components you need to govern, which are the hardware, the physical machine itself, the software, so the new algorithms you'll be using, and crucially, integration.
Because it won't be a standalone thing.
Never. It will always operate in a hybrid digital ecosystem, tightly integrated with all your existing classical systems. By breaking it down like that, an organization can manage the change in, much more manageable pieces.
That seems like a much less scary way to start. But now we have to talk about the warning flare, the existential threat that makes all of this so urgent. The book calls it technology's dual potentiality.
This is a really critical point. Technology itself, whether it's AI or quantum, is neutral. It's a tool. Its potential is decided entirely by the user's intent.
Good or bad.
We can use quantum to cure diseases, or we can use the exact same power to launch cyber campaigns that are, completely unprecedented. You have to plan for both, the opportunity and the threat.
And the defensive threat, the one that's driving all this panic, it centers on one single event, Q-Day.
Q-Day. It's the moment a cryptographically relevant quantum computer arrives, one that is stable enough and powerful enough to fall into the wrong hands.
And that machine will be able to do what?
It will break the math that underpins pretty much all of our standard public key encryption. Things like RSA 2048. It is, and this isn't an exaggeration, encryptogeddon for any data that isn't protected.
But the threat isn't just waiting for that day, which could still be a few years away. We have this problem of steal now, decrypt later, and that's happening right now.
This is the present-day crisis. Right now, sophisticated threat actors, including foreign states, are actively vacuuming up enormous quantities of encrypted data.
The corporate crown jewels, classified information, medical records, IP.
All of it. They're just hoarding it. They know it's secured by classical encryption, and they'll store it for as long as it takes. Because once Q-Day arrives, they can go back and retroactively decrypt everything they've ever stolen.
So for any data that needs to stay secure for a long time, the risk is immediate.
It's immediate. The breach has, in a way, already happened.
So the solution isn't fighting a quantum computer with another quantum computer. It's migrating to something else entirely. Something classical, but quantum resistant.
That's an excellent point to clarify. The solution is post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. And they're called classical because they run on our conventional computers today.
But they're based on math that even a quantum computer can't solve easily.
Exactly. A quantum computer is very good at one type of math problem, the kind Shor's algorithm solves, which is factoring large numbers. So PQC is built on fundamentally different, much harder math problems like lattice-based cryptography. You'll hear about algorithms like the NIST-approved Kyber and dilithium.
So they're the new, stronger locks we have to install before the quantum lockpicks are widely available.
That's the perfect analogy.
Okay, this brings us to the mathematical imperative, the thing that dictates the raw urgency of this whole thing. If you're listening and you're wondering, do I really have time?
Yeah.
You need to understand Moska's theorem.
It's summarized as x plus y is greater than z. And honestly, it is the single most sobering metric in the entire book. It's a clear way to assess if your organization is already in the danger zone.
Okay, let's break it down. Let's start with X.
X is the data security duration. Basically, how long does your data need to stay secure?
And that varies wildly.
Wildly. For credit card data, maybe just a few years. But for medical records, it could be 50 years or more. Classified government information, sensitive IP, X could be measured in decades.
So you have to figure out your biggest X value.
You have to, because that's what dictates the urgency for the whole organization.
Okay, next up is Y, the project time. And this is where the fear really sets in.
Y is the estimated time you need for a full PQC migration to get to what's called cryptographic agility, where you can switch out encryption methods quickly and reliably.
And experts are saying this could take how long?
A decade or more. I mean, it is a hugely disruptive process. It touches every single digital component of an organization.
Yeah.
And this Y variable is the one the book focuses on trying to accelerate.
A decade? I mean, that sounds completely impossible for a mid-sized company or even a large non-tech company. Is the author saying only giant corporations can survive Q-Day?
Well, you've hit on the core tension.
Because if the project takes 10 years and Q-Day is predicted in the next, 5 to 7, then a lot of companies are already out of time.
And that's exactly why the book is so necessary. If you project a 10-year Y, then yes, many organizations are already failing that test. But that 10-year estimate is based on the slow, traditional, risk-averse way we've done migrations in the past, like replacing SHA-1.
And the book's point is that that pace is no longer good enough.
It's no longer acceptable. We have to find ways to dramatically shorten Y through accelerated, structured change and project management.
Okay, and that brings us to the final variable, Z.
Z is the arrival time. It's the external, uncontrollable variable, the predicted time until that cryptographically relevant quantum computer actually shows up.
And I don't know for sure when that is.
We don't. But by tracking milestones, processor progress, qubit stability, government investment security architects can place Z within a reasonable window.
So let's put it all together. When the equation x plus yz is true, when the time data needs to be secure plus the time it takes to fix it is greater than the time until the threat arrives, what does that mean in plain English?
It means your systems and your data are already at severe, potentially catastrophic risk. It means you've either started too late or, more likely, you have severely underestimated Y, your project duration.
So this mathematical imperative is what drives everything. Acceleration isn't just a nice to have.
It's a survival mechanism. This is why the NIST deadlines are so important. They're planning to phase out RSA 2048 by 2030, with a full ban probably by 2035. That's a regulator basically telling organizations your X is running out of time.
Given that daunting, mathematically proven deadline, it is just astonishing that so many organizations are still stuck. Which brings us back to that core behavioral challenge you mentioned, quantum hesitancy. If the stakes are this high, what are the roadblocks? Why the delay?
Well, you could sort of group the barriers into two buckets, organizational and systemic. And organizationally, the most critical one, the one with the global shortage, is the lack of quantum competencies.
And competence isn't just knowing stuff.
Not at all. It's the combination of knowledge, skills, and experience that are effectively applied. Very few organizations have the in-house staff needed to confidently scope, lead, and then implement a decade-long, incredibly complex PQC migration.
So it's a fear of failure driven by a skills gap. And the second big organizational roadblock is, kind of ironically, the distraction of success.
That's right. The near-term focus. Look, leaders are correctly focusing on delivering immediate value through AI deployment, migrating to the cloud, securing their networks with zero trust.
All critical projects.
Absolutely. But they consume all the talent, all the budget, and all the executive attention. And that constantly diverts resources away from what feels like a future problem, which of course just makes the Y parameter even longer and the problem worse.
And what about those external systemic barriers, the ones organizations use to rationalize the delay?
We see three main ones. Lagging regulatory frameworks, where companies say they're waiting for absolute clarity before you make a move. The immature quantum industry itself, which introduces tech risk and uncertainty the boards hate. And then just simple financial constraints.
Right. It's a huge investment.
It's a massive capital and operational investment that isn't easy to get approved in a tight budget cycle. The book points out that public sector organizations are especially susceptible to this because of an extreme aversion to any kind of public failure.
Okay, so before we can even think about schedule compression, we have to prepare the organization itself. And the book argues that foundation of readiness is all about strategic alignment and technical maturity.
100%. The foundational step is a gap analysis. You have to clearly define your current state, where you are now, maybe relying completely on RSA 2048 in your desired target state.
Which would be what?
Something like achieving crypto agility and securing some early quantum capabilities. If you don't know what that gap is, you can't possibly estimate the time, the why, or the cost with any accuracy.
And your ability to even bridge that gap is measured by what the book calls technical maturity.
Technical maturity is your organization's existing capability level in core operational areas. It's your engine capacity, basically.
And the book has a tool for this, right? The technical maturity capability gizmo.
Yeah, it's a simple but really effective tool. It's designed to guide those strategic discussions and spot potential failure points before they happen. It assesses your capability across 4 domains.
What are they?
Project management, so your ability to actually execute complex projects. Change management, your ability to manage the human side, the inertia. Service management, how well you operate and maintain new tech, often using standards like ITIL. And finally, cybersecurity management.
So how does this gizmo actually work? Is it just a checklist?
It's more of a self-assessment scale, usually from 1 to 5. 1 is, ad hoc and chaotic. 5 is optimized and fully integrated. The power of it isn't the final score. It's the conversation it forces.
Ah, I see.
If your IT department rates your project management as a 4, but the finance department rates it as a 2 because of constant budget overruns, that's not a problem with the tool. That discrepancy highlights a massive area of misalignment you have to fix before you even think about accelerating.
And the result of that assessment determines your technical maturity pathway.
Exactly. The pathway shows that sufficient technical maturity is just non-negotiable. If you have high maturity, you decrease project risk, you increase feasibility. If you try to accelerate in a low maturity environment, you are just guaranteeing failure and costly rework.
The goal isn't to be perfect, though.
No, not at all. You don't need a perfect 5 everywhere. That would be a waste of money. It's about finding that Goldilocks level of maturity just right and sufficient to support the change without overinvesting.
Okay, so once the gaps are identified, we need a method for actually changing minds and driving action. This brings us to the change management approach, the 80-CAR change framework.
80-CAR stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement, is really the engine for overcoming that human inertia, that hesitancy. The book really stresses focusing on the front end, the pre-project phase.
Which is all about getting people ready for the change.
Right. It means focusing intensely on the first 3 letters, A, D, and K. Awareness, desire, and knowledge.
Let's dig into awareness. This has to be more than just sending out a company-wide memo, right?
Oh, far more. Awareness is about establishing a compelling case for change, and it has to be tailored to your audience. Because of that dual potentiality we talk about, the messaging has to be dual track.
Innovation for the business side, threat for the security side?
Precisely. For the business folks, you talk about new revenue opportunities. For the security team, you talk about Q-Day risk. And you need specifics, like those NIST deprecation deadlines. That external mandate makes it real. It answers the why now question very clearly.
Awareness is supposed to spark desire. But desire, that willingness to engage, it has to be built on a foundation of trust.
It absolutely does. Desire is about building commitment to participate and support the change. And commitment is deeply linked to what the book calls truth-telling.
I like that.
In any crisis, trust is everything. If leadership is seen as, hiding the risks or giving false assurances about how easy this will be, commitment just evaporates. Telling the hard truths, even about a decade-long project timeline or the extreme risks of Q-Day, is essential to build the trust you need for people to really engage.
So you need both high desire and high commitment.
You need both to get sustained, proactive action.
And then we move from, I want to change, to I know how to change. We get to knowledge.
This is where you start to bridge that competency gap we talked about.
Yeah.
Knowledge transfer is crucial. And it requires formalized training, not just telling people to go read a book.
The book mentions andragogy, the science of teaching adults.
Yes, and it's a key point. Adult learning has to be relevant, it has to be experience-based, and it has to be immediately applicable. You don't just teach the principles, you teach the application.
This sounds like a pretty significant training effort.
It is. The knowledge pathway is often structured using tools like the ADDI model for instructional design and guided by Bloom's taxonomy.
Bloom's taxonomy, okay.
It just ensures that the training progresses logically, moving learners from basic recall, like knowing what PQC is, all the way to application, like implementing the PQC key, and then synthesis, like integrating it with existing systems. It's how you build a real upskilling plan.
Okay, so we've covered organizational readiness. What about the individual user's acceptance? The book brings in the Davis technology adoption model for this.
Right. This model helps organizations predict and influence the actual system use by the end users. It really centers on 2 core factors.
The first being perceived usefulness. This is where we have to connect that defensive fear to the offensive opportunities, right?
Absolutely. Usefulness is what drives desire. If a new quantum optimization algorithm is clearly shown to improve profitability or speed up drug discovery, people will want to use it. You have to sell the benefit, not just the abstract potential.
And the second factor is perceived ease of use. Because if it's useful but feels impossible to use, people will just work around it.
100%. If the interface is a nightmare or it requires tons of custom coding, resistance goes way up. So the book suggests using tools like the Quantum Technologies Adoption Readiness Gizmo.
Another gizmo.
Yeah, and this one systematically analyzes things that other models sometimes miss. Specifically, user anxiety about the tech and their self-efficacy, their own belief in their ability to master the new tool.
So you can identify high anxiety groups and help them ahead of time.
Exactly. You can preemptively tailor your communications and your training to make sure you're building a positive attitude toward adoption, not letting fear take root.
Okay, so in part one, we established that for many organizations, Moska's theorem says they're already behind. They have to shorten that Y project parameter. And this forces them into the high-stakes world of schedule compression.
Yes, and SC is really the last line of defense against Q-Day risk, but, and this is a huge but, it is an advanced high-risk tactic. The book gives a very stark warning about this.
Rushing the migration can create new problems.
It can introduce massive new vulnerabilities. Right. We're talking basic oversights in design, flaws in the code, errors in how you manage the new cryptographic keys, vulnerabilities that can be exploited by today's hackers.
So you could make yourself less secure by trying to rush to safety.
Precisely. The book is absolutely firm on this. High technical maturity in project management, change management, and cybersecurity is a non-negotiable prerequisite to even consider schedule compression. Trying this in a low-maturity environment is it's a recipe for disaster.
So, assuming an organization has that high maturity, what are the actual methods for accelerating the timeline?
Well, there are mathematical methods, which are really specialized planning tools. Things like linear programming or Monte Carlo simulations. These are used in the planning phase to scientifically calculate the fastest possible schedule while optimizing for cost.
So that requires some serious expertise.
Oh yeah, PhD-level expertise to model all the variables and dependencies to make sure the compressed schedule is even feasible.
Okay, and what about the more practical, tactical methods that project teams use?
There are three main ones. The first is crashing. This is the classic corporate move. Throw more resources at it. More staff, more equipment, more overtime.
But the book warns us about Brooks' Law.
Yes. The idea that adding more people to a late, complex software project actually makes it later. The communication and coordination complexity just explodes. You have to find the sweet spot, not just throw bodies at the problem.
I think everyone listening has lived through that nightmare. What's the second method?
The second is substitution. This means replacing a long, complex activity with one that's just inherently faster.
So for a quantum project, that could mean what?
Instead of a long, internal on-premise hardware build, you adopt quantum as a service from a cloud vendor. Or instead of building crypto modules from scratch, you use pre-configured secure modules from a trusted vendor. You're basically leveraging the supply chain to buy yourself time.
Okay, and the third tactical method, fast tracking, is flagged as the riskiest of all.
It is. Fast tracking is when you overlap project phases or activities that would normally happen one after the other.
Like starting the design work before the architecture plan is even finished.
Exactly. And you save time up front, but you drastically increase the risk of rework. If that upstream plan changes halfway through, the cost overruns and delays can be absolutely catastrophic. Only the most mature organizations should even attempt it.
To make this really concrete, the book uses a wild, real-world analogy, the Wuhan hospital's case study, building an 1,800-bed hospital in just 12 days.
It's the ultimate example of flash-track schedule compression, and it gives us a clear template of the critical success factors, the CSFs, that quantum teams have to emulate. That hospital build was a life-or-death mission, and that created a powerful, undeniable mandate for change and urgency.
So let's translate those CSFs to a complex PQC migration, starting with the people CSF.
The people factor was about overwhelming force and total dedication. They used crashing, yes, coordinating 10,000 workers and 247 shifts. But the key wasn't just the number of people, it was the quality.
High competence.
Extremely high competence in schedule compression, and they were all unified by this incredibly high degree of commitment and desire. For a quantum project, that means you have to assemble a dedicated, full-time coalition of quantum champions who have the will to win.
Okay, then the process CSFs. How did they manage the chaos?
They used mature, automated, lean processes. It allowed for real-time change management. Everyone understood that time was the #1 priority, so teams could act with a lot of autonomy. If a plan changed, they could update everything on site in real time. That requires an incredibly effective change management process to avoid fatal mistakes.
And finally, the technology CSFs that made that speed possible.
Technology was a huge substitution factor. They used advanced building information modeling, BIM systems as the central source of truth. But the most insightful part was their use of reverse design.
Reverse design?
Yeah. Normally you design something, then you go procure the materials. They flipped it. They designed the hospital based on the supply chain inventory that was immediately available.
Wow.
This substitution, combined with massive off-site prefabrication of standardized modules, was fundamental to compressing that Y variable. And that concept is hugely applicable to PQC migration. Design your systems based on vendor-ready components. Don't wait for bespoke internal perfection.
So if a team does choose that high-risk path of fast-tracking, they need a sophisticated way to analyze the rework risk. How does the book suggest managing that?
It says planners have to analyze overlapping activities across two critical dimensions. First is the upstream activity evolution, how quickly the information from the first task develops. Is it stable or is it changing all the time?
In the second dimension.
Downstream activity sensitivity. This is the cost and effort it would take to do rework if that upstream information suddenly changes.
And when you combine those two, you get a risk matrix.
Yes, the activity evolution and sensitivity risk matrix. And it tells you what to avoid at all costs. The highest risk pairing is category 1, a slow evolution task impacting a high sensitivity task.
Give me an example of that.
Imagine a detailed security architecture plan, which is slow to develop and unstable, is the predecessor to a high-cost, high-effort global hardware deployment. If that architecture changes late in the game, the cost of rework on the deployment is catastrophic.
So planners have to relentlessly avoid those category 1 overlaps.
Exactly. Or find ways to mitigate them. It requires constant, intense collaboration between the technical teams, project managers, and finance.
Okay, so we've established the risk, the need for maturity, and the accelerated tactics. Now let's tie it all together into the blueprint, the accelerated change management plan. Where do you even start in defining this dual future?
The strategy has to define the outlook for both sides of the coin. The offensive, which is quantum innovation, and the defensive, quantum-safe cryptography.
So for innovation, the vision would be what?
Things like creating a quantum playpen for low-risk experiments, exploring specific use cases that could help the business, maybe developing new products. And for the defense side, the vision is all about achieving that crypto agility and minimizing the catastrophic effects of failure, avoiding regulatory fines, reputation damage, loss of market share. You need a balanced dual-track approach.
And defining that strategy then flows down into specific component plans.
4 plans are absolutely critical. A sponsorship plan to make sure you have sustainable funding and executive backing. An upskilling plan to close that competency gap. A robust communications plan using ADK messaging to build that awareness and desire. And finally, a very detailed risk management plan, because acceleration just inherently makes everything more complex.
And the success of all these plans really hinges on one role: the champion.
The quantum champion is the single most critical success factor for the whole thing. These are your highly competent, action-oriented leaders. They promote change with conviction and energy. They're the ones who really act with that sense of urgency that schedule compression requires.
And the relationship with the executive leadership is key. They need empowerment, but leaders need oversight.
This is where that Goldilocks principle comes in again. You need strategic sponsors like the CEO to provide the funding and the power to break through bureaucracy. And you need tactical sponsors like directors to keep the daily momentum going.
It's about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. Enough empowerment for the champion to act fast and take managed risks, but enough oversight to ensure alignment and prevent them from going completely off the rails. Too much control chokes the effort. Too little risks disaster.
To break through that initial inertia, the book details a 100-day plan framework. This is a sprint to kick everything off.
The 80-car 100-day plan is the total antithesis of inertia. It's a structured sprint designed to quickly achieve awareness, desire, and knowledge among your key stakeholders, especially people like the CEO who control the budget and the strategy.
So what are the actual actionable goals for that sprint?
Well, within 100 days, you should aim to start the sustainable funding conversation with finance. You should establish an empowered cross-functional steering committee. You should form that coalition of quantum champions. And crucially, you should identify and start some early wins.
The low-hanging fruit.
Right. That quantum playpen for experimentation is a perfect example of a quick win that builds momentum and competence. The 100-day plan basically integrates all those other component plans: strategy, sponsorship, upskilling into one unified, focused sprint that's designed to get you from planning to action immediately.
And this whole effort, the PQC migration, it's a marathon, not a sprint. How does this 80-car sprint align with the full life cycle, which could go on for a decade?
The book concludes by showing how the 80-car process connects across the entire technology lifecycle. It's a framework for sustained change.
So how does that look?
The pre-project phase is the demand phase. That's your big A, D, and K awareness, desire, knowledge. Once the project is approved, it moves to the project delivery phase, which ITIL calls the service value chain. That's where you build the A for ability. The physical work gets done, and then the post-project phase delivers the value. That's your big R reinforcement, making sure the change sticks.
So the foundation for success is building this comprehensive, integrated system.
Absolutely. The core takeaway of the whole book is integration and standardization. If you align and combine these established standards, PMBOK for projects, NIST for security, ITIL for service management, and ADCAR for the human change, you create a lean, sustainable, integrated foundation.
And that's what reduces risk and lets you maintain that acceleration for the entire decade of quantum projects that's coming.
That's the only way it works.
Wow.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today, and it's all driven by the urgency of Mosca's theorem. The transformation required means moving from that organizational hesitancy to a strategic program of acceleration, and that requires structure. Structured change management with the ADCAR front end, rigorously assessing your risk timeline, and only if absolutely necessary, applying those advanced schedule compression tactics.
But only with extremely high technical maturity.
Only.
And we have to end on that critical, very sobering warning about speed. While we focus on acceleration, we just can't ignore the risk. There was a critical study of construction projects that found schedule compression was successful only 21.4% at the time. I mean, that's an abysmal success rate. And it just underscores that speed by itself is not enough. Success requires that high technical maturity, dedicated full-time teams, integrated software, and fundamentally, a compression mindset.
That mindset is key. It's about embracing urgency, prioritizing time over cost, being transparent, and proactively managing risk across that entire champion coalition.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. Given that the most critical element for accelerated success is having teams with a compression mindset who embrace urgency and managed risk-taking, what existing practices in your current organization, the overly rigid approval processes, the outdated communication hierarchies, the low priority status for cross-functional teams, what would you have to stop doing today to truly enable that necessary culture for your quantum champions and shorten your Y parameter before Z arrives?
The clock is ticking.
What are you stopping today to win tomorrow? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the strategic playbook for the quantum era. We'll catch you on the next one.